I'm Gene, and this is Perfect Flow. I'm a New Zealand-based athlete and coach focused on optimizing performance, health, and well-being. I have a professional background in biomedical engineering, but I've chosen to follow my more immediate passions of running, endurance, adventure, movement, nutrition, science, lifestyle, community, psychology, and personal growth. My mission is to connect with bright minds and extract the information I need to live a life that makes sense and feels good, and share those conversations right here. Apart from your favorite podcast app, the best places to follow my work are at perfectflow.nz, genebeveridge.nz, and Perfect Flow on Facebook. Enjoy the show. Well, here we go, talking about orienteering on a podcast. So I wasn't entirely sure how soon orienteering as a topic would come up on Perfect Flow. Of course, that was the idea, to have orienteering on this podcast, and it's something I could talk about all day. But I do know that at least the listeners who get in contact with me in New Zealand, orienteering makes up quite a small portion of those listeners, and I'm very aware that running and nutrition and general health are bigger topics for the general public, but I can't understate my passion for orienteering, and my connections with the community around the world are pretty well entrenched, and I'm going to drag as many people into this as I can. So you could say that my first two podcasts were orienteering. I kind of see those as a bit of a one-off. I did want to do something quite specific there in sharing some stories from national team members with the community back in New Zealand, because a good chunk of our national team lives in Europe. And that wasn't necessarily part of the podcast, but you will have seen that I have released those as Perfect Flow 1 and 2. This, I feel like, is my first real podcast. This is a conversation that I was off the cuff, and I was as interested as I hope you are. It's with Ralph Street. Ralph Street is a member of the Great Britain national team, and he's competed in many world champs, and he's been living in Sweden, Stockholm specifically, and Oslo in Norway. He also spent a year in Australia, which is quite unique. He made the most of the scholarship that the Australian orienteering, I assume it was the national body, was offering there. And we mentioned Warren Key, who has definitely passed some advice on to Ralph that we discuss, and we get into some nitty-gritty of orienteering, the details of navigation and navigation theory, you could say. So I mean, that's new, and I've never heard people discuss it like this, so I'm really interested to hear what people think about it. So apart from getting into how we describe orienteering and the challenge of navigation, I am, of course, really trying to get this conversation towards Jukola. And man, 5 years ago, it really seems like it was just yesterday that I was watching the live stream of Jukola, and is that Ralph? Is Ralph off the front? He's going for it. And that was pretty entertaining for us watching, and of course it was a big learning curve for Ralph going off the front of Jukola, the most prestigious orienteering relay. And he's had some amazing races, and that was not one of his best, and I'm really keen to get into that, of course, the whole time we're talking. And you can see, if you're on my website, the fantastic picture of him off the front there in the Jukola start line, and of course the videos there. So I think that's a lot of fun to talk about, and the way he describes his success and failures, I think, is fantastic. And you see, no matter what level we're on, we're all taking part in a similar process, and I can't understate how talented Ralph is, and how important it is for us to see people outside of the big orienteering nations, that is Sweden, Norway, Finland, Switzerland, and alike, and to see Great Britain really getting up there and fighting for the top places is fantastic for us. So to see him and some of the other fellow GB athletes just take on the Scandies like this is amazing. And I really enjoyed this hour and a bit talking to Ralph, and I hope you do too. Ralph, you're here. You're on a podcast.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's really interesting and quite surprising to kind of have this role going where I'm now interviewing people I've spent, I guess, a fair few years knowing, but maybe not knowing the details quite so much, and I'm sure forgetting a lot of the details. But you've had a long journey in orienteering since your junior years, and I'm really keen to hear how you see yourself, how you've progressed.
Okay.
And coming from England, which isn't the center of orienteering, but now living in the center of orienteering.
Yep.
And yeah, would love to get into the picture, which of course I've shared with the post of you well off the front of a Jukola start line, and how does a guy from England discover orienteering and then get himself off the front of the biggest start line of the calendar?
Yep.
Yeah. So, what was your first taste of orienteering?
My parents.
Yep. Same as a lot of us.
Yep. They met doing orienteering, so
Yep.
orienteering a big part of my childhood.
Romance.
Orienteering romance. Taken to orienteering events from 6 days old, born on the Monday, at my first race on the Sunday.
6 days. That's so cool. And is there a photo of you?
I don't
the
think
pram?
so.
That'd be sweet.
Before Instagram was a thing, I think. So, part of a stable part of my childhood, coming to doing orienteering races.
Yeah, and like me, you probably can't remember the first time. You just recall that you did easy orienteering courses, and
I remember the first race I did.
Oh yeah.
Or the first time I was in the forest on my own was
trauma really itches that in, doesn't it?
Scotland 99, Scottish 6 days, together with the World Orienteering Championships.
Wow, yeah. But you probably wouldn't have known what was going on.
I had no concept of the World Orienteering Championships. I don't think I'd been told about it, or my parents hadn't told me about it. I think I remember standing there at the end when Yvette Baker won the middle distance.
Yeah, wow. I know Yvette.
But I don't really remember it being a thing or anything. It was my first time that I was orienteering on my own.
Okay.
Doing what we call a white course.
Yeah,
like
okay. We've got
get.
white as well,
okay.
so maybe our color scheme is taken from you guys. But yeah, I know somehow my parents would watch me do the course.
Yeah.
So you go to that stage where they're taking you around, and then of course they let you do it by yourself, and you think you're by yourself, but they're watching somehow. So this is the first time you hit the start line without them holding your hand, essentially.
Yep.
Yeah. Do you remember how it went? Like, it's pretty cool to even remember that much.
I was second.
Wow, you do
and
remember.
I got beat by Severin Howald.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, so his family are into it and traveling as
I
well.
guess they were there for the World Championships, probably.
Okay, if his parents are racing.
Watching it, or I have no idea. But I just remember being beaten by some foreign guy.
Yeah.
And I went back and looked at the results.
Years later.
Like 10 years ago, and went, it's 7.
Wow, look how far he's come as well.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. And you had a club in the UK?
So I ran for South London Orienteers. Okay. Or at the time I was running for London. South London must be 120 people, I guess.
Modest.
Yeah, I think it's quite big by UK standards, and it's a bit unique because it's got a lot of people aged between 21 and 35.
Okay, what's that?
Young professionals coming to work in London.
Right.
Who start running for us.
Yeah, no, I think in New Zealand we have a lot of clubs, I guess, around that size, and I guess we feel like it's quite small. Of course, coming to Sweden, but I guess we focus on the big clubs a lot.
Yeah,
there are a heap of small clubs. Over here, just doing their thing, trucking along. So you progressed through as a junior. Did you always like orienteering? Did you always intend to keep it going?
I didn't really enjoy it to start with. It was more being forced to go. And once I was there, I enjoyed the concept of being out in the forest. But I didn't actually enjoy the orienteering. I enjoyed.
Did you suck as much as I did when I was little as well?
No, I've always been all right at it. But I enjoyed the playing with other children rather than the actual going and doing the
adventure
orienteering.
into the bush afterwards to like break some old log open and like almost eat some bugs or something. Yeah. And then there's a stage as a junior, of course, where you hear about JWOC, I guess, is the big thing. Maybe are there other events from England that you hear about as a junior that get you excited?
I didn't hear about JWOC until I was almost eligible for selection, I think.
Oh, right.
Or I didn't think I think of it as a thing until I was like 16, 17.
Right. And then you were in.
Then I was there racing to see if I could get in or not. And wasn't good enough the first year.
Okay.
And went to European Youth Champs instead.
Oh, yeah. So you do get exposure.
So that was my first taste of international orienteering.
Yeah. And what else in the UK do you kind of build up to before you get after European Youth Champs?
We have the JK, the Jan Kjellström Festival of Orienteering, which is our big Easter competition, and we have British Champs. So when you're 12 years old, those are the two things you do. Yeah. And when I was a junior, we had the Future Champions Cup, which was a junior series going towards this sort of selection race weekend where they'd take the top 3 people and take them to JWOC. And basically they looked at the overall results from that weekend and pick teams off it. So that was the big thing for me as an 18 or as a 20.
And did you feel that structure was kind of obvious to you growing up, that you could see the progression that was before you if you wanted to take it?
Well, I could see that if you went and did well at these races, they'd take you to JWOC.
Yeah. But there was support like to develop you?
Well, I was a member of the GB junior program, or it was the talent squad first, and then I made it into the junior squad from second year 14. Yeah. They collect all the
14's pretty young.
Collect all the regions of England, send some number of juniors off to some junior training camp in Scotland. They do a week in Scotland and they pick some amount of people to go into the GB squad after this weekend. And then you get we had Sport England funding and UK Sport funding at the time. And we went and did some training camps, training weekends really, 3 times a year, I think. And then there'd be another summer camp the year after. And you either get picked for that or you didn't. And 2 top year 14 and bottom year 16 camps were in Scotland. And then I got sent to Halden for 2 weeks as a top year 16, and that was.
What's up with that?
That was
sent.
I mean, training camp. Yeah, 2-week training camp
with the whole team.
With the year, with my year basically, and that was incredible. Yeah, my beautiful summer in Norway, in wonderful, amazing forests that I don't think I'd ever orienteered outside of Britain.
What's the terrain like that you're confident with before you get thrown in Halden? Like, were you quite confident with the local terrain? You develop habits.
Yeah, so
get you through.
Terrain in southeast England is, I would say, kind of bland contours, soft shapes, bit of climb, bit of undergrowth. You're mostly reading vegetation detail. Mm-hmm. Very, very little rock, if any, on the maps. I guess classic continental stuff. It looks like
a smooth rolling continental.
Yeah, smooth rolling continental.
Yeah,
would be.
And then to get thrown into Halden, where the contours are jagged, and what do you do with that?
Just the concept of contours and marshes and hills and unbelievable.
Yeah. How did you? If you remember, how did you handle the navigation? I just know if I was thrown in it at that age, I just hadn't really had enough development to kind of know what to do with it. you feel like you?
Oh well, I had no idea
quickly?
what I was doing.
Yeah.
I could go out and I could find some control some of the time, and I would make huge mistakes.
Yeah.
The Tour Champs race, I remember running extremely well for, I don't know, 12 out of the 13 controls, and losing 20 minutes or more on one control.
Yeah.
So
it's the hardest.
I mean, but I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah. So that gives you a taste of where it's at. And when you were over there, did you interact much with the locals, or was it just sort of quite insular?
Just us?
Yeah. Okay.
I remember
that would have also been interesting, just to get your ass spanked by some local kids who.
That happened the year after.
Yeah.
We went to Uppsala for a training camp, and that was a harder training camp because the forest was much greener than Halden, or at least what I remember where we were training. And there was the local boy from the club.
Yeah.
Who we thought was some kind of orienteering god, basically. He drove this car, so he was instantly super cool. He was, Swedish, stylish, and amazing at orienteering. Yeah, from what we could tell.
Yeah, and kind of, I don't think they've realized how good they are, or how much progress they've made, because their terrain is hard and because they've started it young, or whatever it is. I had that same experience with World Schools Champs last month. That this was the first time for some of the young Finns and young Swedes overseas, and they're quite concerned about the competition, and they're quite nervous, and then they just wipe the floor.
Yes.
And I think they've also been insular in their own way, and don't realize that they're so ahead of the game relative to those of us who have just haven't got to the toughest orienteering yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's something to grapple with when you're that age, that these people are amazing. Then do you take inspiration from that, or was it like, oh shit, we're actually all useless?
I think I'd had the reality check of how good I actually was when I went to European Youth Champs.
Right, so you were kind of prepared for that.
Maybe that was the 4, 5, 6, 7. It must have been just before we'd gone out to Uppsala.
Right. And so you'd seen them win by miles, or at least be.
Well, I'd gone to this European Youth Champs thinking that I'm pretty good in Britain. Yeah. Pretty good for my age. Therefore, I must be pretty good when it comes to meeting other people. Yeah. And just got annihilated at this field. Yeah. So I think I understood that there were people out there who were better at orienteering than I was. Yeah.
And the top people weren't in the UK, at least at the junior level. You felt like the UK was a little bit.
I had no idea. I'd never followed any JWOC results. I didn't know what was expected. Yeah. When I was 16, going on 17 at this time.
Cool. And then you went to, when was your first year?
2008, Gothenburg. So I was second year 18.
Yeah. And pretty challenging.
Oh, I was terrible.
Very, very challenging courses. Yeah, I think that was the first year I paid attention. As well, and I was like, oh my god, I don't even know how to approach. Yeah. I mean, just looking at the middle distance and being like, I get lost every leg. It's very detailed, and I don't even know how to visualize it. So you took the start line, and how did that go? First JWOC.
I was terrible. I was awful. I was sort of as expected, because my plan through the year had been to go to JWOC, not to do anything with it. And of course, I didn't really have any idea what I was doing still. So I was outside the top 100 on the long and the sprint, but I managed, and I very nearly was in the C final for the middle as well. But by that point, I guess I'd managed to pull together a bit of my orienteering, and having done the races that week, my fitness had got a little bit better, and therefore I was better in the middle final and the relay. Yeah. But I was still like a long way off. Yeah. A long way off. Yeah.
And then you've got one more year as a junior.
Two. I did two. I did Italy and then Denmark.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah. And what was that first experience at JWOC quite motivating? Did you feel like, okay, I can really make progress at this? Or did you still feel like you didn't really know how to make progress?
Oh, good question.
Yeah, there comes a stage where you can actually look inside yourself and see what's going wrong. But I remember that there's a point before I realized that I felt very helpless with orienteering. I didn't know how to improve.
I think I knew part of the reason was that I knew I was not particularly fit when it came to doing a long distance.
Yeah.
And therefore I had a goal to sort of train. I will go and get myself fit, basically. I will go and actually do some proper training.
Yeah.
and we'll see where that fitness takes me.
What about the navigation? Did you feel like you were
I
you could see where to improve?
I don't think I had the ability to know exactly what was going wrong.
Yeah.
All I knew was, I made mistakes. Probably shouldn't do that.
Yeah. I shouldn't make mistakes. But as to the series of the cause and effect and the series of events that unfold, mystery.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. And then, I mean, that's still at JWOC. And yeah, we're still grappling with it, and it's the same for me as well. It took me, I think, 2 years after JWOC until I really understood why I made mistakes. And so did you kind of get it sorted before that your final year as a junior?
I had a very good final year at JWOC.
Cool. Do you know the differences you made? Can you describe your training in that final year?
Well, by then I'd worked out that I at least was running reasonably well. Okay. Because we did this time trial in Britain, terrain time trial, and I was the fastest.
Cool. Wow.
So that gave me that sense of security that actually I don't need to worry about how fast I'm running. If I can just do some decent navigating, I should be able to beat these guys because I can run faster than them. So I had a very good 2009 season, and I think that was confidence was still there in 2010.
Yeah, it feels like it takes you can remove that focus on running away from your attention when you're orienteering, and it frees up a bit of like mental bandwidth to then navigate. I think if I'm ever focusing on pushing hard, of course, I think it's taking some concentration away from navigating and being able to put that to the back of your mind. At least I find it like it frees up some space for me to actually focus on the navigation and not have to think about pushing hard.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely the case as a junior. My technique, or what was my technique, was clearly the weakest. So any effort that I could put into that, even if it wasn't particularly focused effort, was useful for my orienteering.
And did you go into the races in Denmark in your last JWOC with better technique? Had you improved a lot over that season?
I don't think so, but I'd worked out what was important for the terrain. It was sand dunes, sand dune terrain with kind of changes in both vegetation and intricacy. And I understood that the most important thing was to know where I was when I went into the tricky areas. Yeah. And so that was the goal, basically, when I went out on the forest races, was to work this out.
Right. And I think I recall some of the maps, and those very vague areas might have been similar to what you were used to.
I've always been good on sand dunes because I can run, basically.
Yeah. And did you have a sense of, well, we call it traffic lighting, when you can push the pace, and then as soon as you get into the detail, to actually intentionally run at a slower pace? Yeah. Is that something that helped you?
Yeah, well, that would be the way to describe it, would be to say I worked out exactly where the red areas were. Yeah. And therefore I was prepared to go to red for those sections.
Wow. That's progress. Yeah. And that's so fundamental. Yep. I think even the top guys don't look like they're slowing down, but I think in their experience of their orienteering, there's periods where you're really ramping up the thought process about what's around you, and sometimes the top guys are actually just hammering it on a compass.
Yep.
But they've practiced it so much that they can.
Yep.
Really, the green light is really shut off a lot of things. So it's still a technique that is important the whole way through, I think, to elite level. And when did you kind of come to grips? I assume you've made progress, because you're making, I mean, the results in the past 4 or so years for you have been, I mean, right up there. Do you know what your ranking is now?
In the world?
Yeah, definitely top 50.
Something around 30th, I think.
Yeah. I mean, you have to have worked out how to orienteer by that stage. So
you'd be surprised.
You'd be surprised. Just fast.
I think I've had quite a lot of steps where I've sort of begun to understand orienteering. One of these being this JWOC, and you should understand the challenges in the terrain and what it means for you, and what strategies you need to overcome that. So like, that would be a step.
Building a little recipe for a particular race.
Yeah. And then I guess I spoke a lot to Chris Jones. We'd done a JWOC debut together, and then we were on a junior training camp together, which basically we were telling people how to orienteer, and by doing that we're finding out a lot about ourselves, about how our orienteering worked. And Chris had done a bit of a sort of scientific model of how he thought orienteering would work. So discussing how that reflected on our own orienteering. So that was a big sort of step, trying to work out how I could fit where this model, where it worked for me. Meeting Warren Key in Australia, that was pretty cool.
So you spent
experience.
A year in Australia, that kind of scholarship thing. They've got. Do you want to explain that?
It was completely by accident, as a lot of things have been. I was sitting at home in the summer in Britain in July, and Peter Bray rang me up and said, "Hi, how are you? Do you want to go to Australia with me in 2 months' time, or a month's time, or something?" And I said, "Yeah, that sounds really cool." Well, and I had nothing else really to do. I had no responsibilities, so why not go to Australia and do orienteering and find out about the world, basically.
And so you stayed with Warren.
I stayed with the Dalheims.
Okay. The whole time.
Another. We spent a month in Bendigo. The rest of the time we were in Melbourne. And Warren was about, and Warren liked orienteering.
he liked breaking it down too.
So really I mean, and I love orienteering. So to have someone there to talk to orienteering about was really good.
Well, let's talk about what Chris and maybe you kind of theorized how orienteering could be, and compare that to Warren, because I know I don't always agree with the way Warren breaks it down, but it's really good to see, because he's very experienced and he's seen the top guys make progress, and but having, of course, a disagreement about how it might work, I think really reveals where I don't understand some things. So did you find that there was a difference between the way you and Chris broke it down and the way he broke it down?
Well, at the end of my 6 months, I think I'd come to agreement with Warren about how he saw orienteering. The difference was Chris had a model for orienteering, whereas Warren had the technique.
Okay.
That's how I'd describe it. So
delve into that.
Everyone needs a technique in orienteering and an understanding of how they want to find their way forwards. And Warren has a suggestion for how you should do it. And Chris has a model for how good orienteering should work. And therefore you should fit whatever technique you're using into the model of
so like
model of it.
Like a textbook perfect orienteer, these are what you would expect them to be doing. And then you do training to try to up all those different components.
So The theory is that there are several basic things that impact how fast you complete an orienteering course.
Yeah.
How much attention you are paying to your running, how much attention you're paying to reading the map and looking around you, what route choices you take, and how much extra distance you run, how many mistakes you make.
Okay. Yeah.
And therefore you want to minimize the extra distance, take whatever route choices are best for you.
Yeah.
And in theory, pay as much as possible attention to how fast you're running, and as little orienteering, as little attention to the navigation
without making the mistakes.
without impacting the mistakes.
Yeah, so I see what he's saying, and I often phrase it a way that can sound the complete opposite.
Okay.
Which is pay as much attention to the orienteering as possible.
Yep.
But that's given the premise that most of our bad races are because we make mistakes.
Yep.
Yeah, but ultimately you want to simplify more so you don't have to read all the details.
Yeah.
But yeah, it sounds kind of the opposite to what at least I say a lot of is we need to be reading the map more and pay more attention to the map. But you are in a way trying to pay less attention by doing smarter navigation. Is that...
Yeah, so that's the theory, is you can...
Because it is time spent slowing down. You can't run full speed and read the map at the same time.
Yep.
It's just mechanically, even your arm stays still. It's not going to be as fast. But of course, if you're not looking where you put your feet, it's unavoidable that you will slow down.
Yeah.
Yeah, so as fast as possible.
Well, it's then you think about how can I run as fast as possible without making mistakes?
Yeah.
And then
so that's the simplification part.
Yeah, and you look at, for example, Thierry with how he's talking about beacons, and it's faster to follow the hill in this situation because you're just running on it. You just follow the hill. Then you don't actually need to look at the map because it's so simple.
Yeah.
And sort of how do you quantify what he's talking about as a technique, and how do you fit it into your own orienteering and things?
Yeah. So what did Warren emphasize?
Quite a lot of what Thierry talks about trying to follow these features that you and looking for things that you can see. Yeah.
And often looking for something in the terrain before you've seen it on the map.
Reacting to what the terrain presents to you.
Yeah.
So there's no point running through lots of rubbish on the ground if you can see that there's a nice route somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it sounds great. Look forward and see something and then identify it on the map and run to it. I think I struggle with that because I may be a little too optimistic with what I see, and I'm not strong enough on the compass so that when I see something, there's like a good chance that when I relate it back to the map, it's not the right hill.
Yeah.
It's the wrong hill. So, and that's where getting the technique right. Like, I think people like Warren, who are really consistent navigators, they've got all the cogs moving together, and it works really well.
Well, it's like any technique. Once you've spent enough time doing it, you become very good at it.
Yeah.
And trying to change. Well, I've been orienteering 18 years, maybe 10 years in like on kind of proper stuff. Trying to change your habits that you've used for 10 years is incredibly difficult, especially if you've grown up not understanding why they're your habits or not.
Yeah.
So if you grow up in New Zealand in open sand dune forest kind of terrain, it's gonna emphasize some skills that wouldn't get emphasized if you grew up in Scandinavia, and wouldn't get emphasized if you grew up in Czech Republic or somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't know what those. I don't know. Now I'm thinking what those techniques would be in New Zealand. Open sand dune. Everyone is probably very good at when they actually need to run fast, running fast.
Yep.
I guess.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you what doesn't get stressed,
Okay.
and that's being resilient to changes in vegetation.
Okay. Yeah.
So, in Scandinavia, at least, often a lot of the little gullies are denser,
Yep.
or there's some sort of change
Yep.
between the hilltops and the flatter areas, whereas we don't have that change.
Yeah.
And that change actually deflects you as you move into it,
Yeah.
and that's something that's just not stressed.
Yep.
So, I mean, the first time I did JWOC in Denmark, of course, there were
Yep.
dense areas, and without ever having thought that you could get pushed around as much as we were getting pushed around, we don't have any countermeasures to getting pushed around. So, that was definitely one thing that even if I could get away with reactive orienteering in New Zealand, or at least in Auckland, I can, I think I'm amazing. But then I realized the reactiveness wouldn't work so well in Denmark, for example, and some of those with lots of little green patches and fast patches and slow patches and tracks. It was being reactive was such a danger, because I could always find something that fitted. It's like being very hopeful. Even just like there's so many tracks on the map. You get deflected by a green area, find a track junction, and just be like, oh, it must be that one. And it just almost never is. You're just wrong all the time. So that's why I kind of pushed against the reactive orienteering.
Okay.
Because I'd always get it kind of wrong on the map. But if you train it properly in varied terrain, then as you say, you can make it amazing if you really practice it. And some of the top guys have. They're so good at just seeing what's in front of them and picking a line that's just so optimized for running speed.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you kind of clicked to that when you were talking to Warren, or were you like, well, you said you kind of agreed with him by the end, but were you like, oh yeah, sounds idyllic. Sounds dreamy.
I was learning in Australian terrain.
Mm-hmm.
So the big, I guess, and that it made a lot of sense in Australia because, or it was very easy to do because the runnability is basically constant. It's always pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter where you run. Therefore, running on using features that are easier to follow is a lot better. The interesting thing comes when you come to Scandinavia. For me, was even trying to follow an easy to follow feature. Is not always the fastest one. Because I want to go and run by this big cliff. But I know that cliffs in Scandinavia usually have a lot of rock at the bottom, and therefore it's slow running. So you got to learn the terrain, I guess. And find out where.
Where's the combination? What are the features that are easy to follow and fast? If there's enough of them, then maybe you can use the technique, but maybe it's more of a compromise between those two. Maybe sometimes you are picking things that are fast, or do you think that there are enough things that you can still go full speed, no mistakes all the time?
Of course, it's always possible to go
some
full
people
speed,
prove
no mistakes.
that it's possible. It's still I guess some of us are struggling to find that. And for example, that's why I'm over here early, because I'm trying to see where are the fast lines, because they're essentially invisible to someone who just hasn't been in the terrain for enough time. But seeing the GPS analysis from some of our sessions with some of the Norwegians early in the week, you can see I'm doing one thing, like everyone else is doing something else. Like I missed the memo. There's something that they have learned, developed a habit that I'm just oblivious to. And you can see it on a number of the routes. So it's not ambiguous. People have worked it out. It's not just luck.
The interesting thing I would say is, do people know why, or is it just?
It's just
like
so
habit,
intuitive. I don't know.
I mean, because I think if you asked me, I'm not sure I'd be able to tell you where the best places are.
In Scandinavia or in your local terrain?
I think it's very. I think my local terrain doesn't have the. Oh, I've never really thought about it, but I don't think, because we don't have the variation of runnability as they do have in Scandinavia.
Right.
It's all just generally good or
Right.
generally bad.
Yeah, I see. Whereas it really makes a difference here. Like the
a huge
fast line and the
difference.
slow line is,
Yeah.
you can see one GPS dot just struggling
Yeah.
to make progress. That's a really good point, and something that we don't get so much of in New Zealand, because all the forests, a lot of the forests are artificially planted, so they're all planted at the same time.
Yep.
And the trees are managed in the same way, and similar to Australia as well. I think that you pick one area and the runnability is largely the same over the whole area. So the past few years, who have you run with? When did you make that step to join a Swedish club? And what was really going through your mind? Did you realize that now's the time whether I take orienteering seriously, or was there other things attracting you to move to Scandinavia?
There were things attracting me towards running.
Yep.
I was a reasonable cross-country runner.
Mm-hmm.
I know,
which is big in the UK.
Yeah, big scene. And I guess I was coming up to the point where I was going to decide where I wanted to go to university. And there was a decision of, should I go to a university where there's lots of orienteering, or should I go to a university where there's lots of athletics? And I picked one that did a lot of orienteering.
Yeah.
And
Where
then
was that?
Sheffield.
Okay. Yeah.
And then first year as a senior, I got myself a Scandinavian club, Södertälje.
Yeah.
And
I think a lot of guys your age kind of went there at the same time. They kind of merge in around the same years.
Yeah, so when I joined in 2011. First year, I was first year senior. And the same year, we got Jonas Andersson, who is the same age as me, and a lot of other people that are good, but maybe aren't well known in the international scene.
Yeah.
But a lot of very good Scandinavian runners. And then I moved there after I finished university in 2012, and we lived in a big house together. So there was me and 5-6 other guys, all very good, very serious at orienteering.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah. So you've found yourself in orienteering heaven, because the terrain there is amazing, and the motivation must have been through the roof, hanging out with a whole lot of guys trying to achieve the same thing.
Yeah, it was intense. I think it was a big culture shock.
Yeah.
Going from a British university to basically a permanent elite training camp.
Yeah, basically. A year-long training camp.
Yeah.
That starts again on the first day of the next year.
So,
yeah,
and we had they were all about the same age. So, Ivar Lundenes was there. He's the year younger than me. He was in the house. Had Rickard Olsen, who's the year younger than me, same house. Eric Börjeskog, 2 years younger, I guess. Scott was there. Scott Fraser.
Yeah.
He's a bit older, British.
Yeah.
Eric Liljeqvist, bit older, Swedish.
Yeah.
And then a lot of other guys around about.
So what did a typical week look like?
We did Tuesday morning intervals, and you feel very professional there when you turn up at the athletics track at 10 o'clock, completely empty, and you're there to do a session. And your coach is there, and then you all go in.
Yeah.
Wednesday evening orienteering.
Yeah. Night
in the winter, daylight in when there was daylight.
Yeah.
Club training on a Thursday night. Long runs Thursday mornings. Sessions at the weekend, like orienteering Saturday, long run Sundays.
Oh yeah.
So what's that? 2-3 orienteering sessions a week, 2 of them fast.
Yeah, I think that's the next question is, how do they decide if we're going to do this much orienteering? Do we combine it with a long run to give you more time in terrain, or do they think that it's about experiencing orienteering at race pace where more value is added?
There was a lot, trying to do as much orienteering as possible, and quite a lot of it fast, relevant sessions for Tiomila, basically.
Yeah, right.
So forked night races or long individual night training.
Yeah,
basically.
That sorts your technique out if it's struggling.
Well, it certainly makes you more comfortable orienteering. You just go out and you find controls.
Yeah.
Or not controls, as it was. A lot of the training we did was without controls. So I actually got very good at being stable into controls without having to have that safety net of having a control there to tell me that I was right. I knew I was right, basically.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. And initially we just did it out of necessity, because who's going to draw the short straw and go put out markers for all of us? But then after a while, we thought, well, actually, we're all getting quite good at reading right into the control now. And we noticed that prior to that, especially if we raced at 1 in 15,000 with the old circles used to be massive. You would get a false sense of how obvious the control flag would be when you got within the circle, and that was where the big time was lost, just faffing around endlessly, just like sliding on through, not having seen it. I definitely rate the training without flags. It builds your confidence. But the night training, was that a big shock as well?
Well, I mean, if you can imagine that I had no idea really what I was doing in the daylight in Scandinavia. So
it was really next level.
I was. I mean, the honest truth, I wasn't very good at it. And I am better now, but I'm still not at the level of the really very good guys who do night orienteering. And
what do you think the difference is?
I think I run quite a lot on feeling in a way, and feeling doesn't get you very far when the visibility goes down in the night, especially when you run through the denser areas of forest. And I get pushed off, and I don't think I have the confidence either to really go for it in the night. Because I'm worried that I'm going to make these big mistakes. And therefore, on individual night training, I will be slower, but I can keep up when it's a group, because then I've got the confidence that we're all going in the right direction.
I think I have a similar experience as well, coming from having a good fitness base. But not the sharp end of the navigation. I can do really well in relay sometimes, because you're holding on for the tough bit. And I play into that. I'm like, okay, I'm on the back for this leg. And I'm planning the next leg. And it's only going to get you so far, but you can do okay just holding on in some of these.
It's a useful job races. And it's a useful skill to have if people know that you're good at doing relay legs and doing night legs. I mean, I don't think it's any secret that there are more non-Scandinavian runners who run first legs at Tiomila and Jukola.
And more of the Scandinavians doing
the individual tough. Well, the foreigners will run the long night as well.
Oh, because the following with no forking. True. Okay. So they were on the most forked, where the most confidence is required, and the ability to ignore others and hold that line with low visibility because of both the forest and the nighttime, of course. When did you get into, I think, dissecting the technique a little bit further, enough to make the progress that you've seen in the past 5 years? Because looking at your orienteering now, you clearly know what's going on. You're not making mistakes very often. You're clean generally in and out of the circles. You have to have got a technique working to do that consistently. Like, the habits are obviously there. Did you know exactly what changes you made?
Yes.
Cool.
I think.
Yeah. Because often you just gradually get better as you develop the habits, and it's quite cool if you can pass on your experiences. You were paying attention to it.
Well, like I said, once I had a model to fit it in and a technique from Warren, basically, that was that allowed me actually probably for the first time to really understand what I was at least trying to do. And I could see when I could now see where I wasn't following my technique. It wasn't anymore, I had bad compass on this leg. I understood that I wanted to use my compass at this point to get me to this point, and I was unable to do that because of something.
Okay. Was that something, your hastiness to take the bearing?
Oh, it'd be a variation of what actually happened in the terrain, but it could be I actually didn't really know where I was.
Right.
And therefore, of course, you can't find where you're trying to get to if you don't know where you are.
You did a straight line from an unknown point to another
unknown
point.
Yes, exactly. Or it could be, you got pushed around in the marsh. Or it could be, actually, you really weren't looking at your compass. You were still trying to look at the features in front of you.
Or you looked at your compass, it told you something, and then you just did something.
Yeah. Something. So.
Yeah, and I think being able to look at yourself and actually tell what's going wrong is crucial to know actually what to change.
Well, it gives, exactly. It allows you to know that there are things to change. Yeah. So I think I've improved, personally, I feel I've improved a huge amount the last year and a half with Beveridge. Yep.
So this is the club you've moved to.
Yeah, so
since your time in Stockholm. So you spent, 5 years in Stockholm?
Moved in 2012, left Södertälje in 2016, really. I moved to Oslo 2016, ran for Södertälje 2017 and 2018, and now have switched to Beveridge in Oslo.
Yeah, and it's good. Is it giving you what you need to make your progress?
It's making me better at orienteering.
Yeah.
So it's all good.
What does Beveridge offer that you needed?
I needed really, really serious orienteering technique sessions.
Right.
That's what I needed.
Okay, and what do you mean by serious exactly? How is that different to, you were serious before, as far as I can tell?
Well, I went out and did a lot of orienteering before. Right. Now I go out really with a purpose of what I'm trying to work on. And we come back and we talk about what I've been doing and if I've been good at it or bad at it. And based on that, we decide, okay, we need to go out and do this, or we need to go and do that.
So when you say good or bad, to tell me about how you identify that, you could look at a course and say, I lost 5 minutes. It was that bad. And you could say, I lost 1 minute, it was that bad. But if you're really looking at a specific purpose of the session, say your specific purpose was something about compass bearings, and you just took shitty compass bearings the whole time, but something else saved you, is that a good session or a bad session?
That's a bad session.
Yeah.
The job is to go out and do compass bearings.
Right. So you've really identified that's quite a change.
Yep.
You've got a specific goal in mind.
Yes.
And what are the things that you found you really needed to do?
For my orienteering technique?
Yeah, for your technique.
I was losing a lot of time in and around the control circle.
Okay. Basically. So you've identified that you can see your GPSs and you go in, and you know as well when you get there you're faffing around.
Yep. So it's trying to work out how to do that faster, basically.
Okay. So would you describe a certain what should it feel like if you're doing it right? Did you work from that approach? You're like, okay, what should it feel like? How do I get there? How do you break that down and then design exercises or design a mental strategy?
Well, now I know how it should feel. I can tell when it's not right.
Yeah. But at the time, if you haven't
But at the time,
really
it just
got a grasp
go...
of it.
Because orienteering is an individual sport, you very rarely have a chance to see other people in action and get that feedback.
Yeah, and even seeing them doesn't really tell you what's going on in their head.
Exactly.
That's the bit we're trying to work out.
So you look at the GPS and you look at the splits, and you see, I'm 5% behind or something. And you look at the GPS and it tells you, like you've been talking about, it shows I obviously don't take the right route choices. And then it was just being with enough other people of varying speeds in the forest after doing orienteering that I could realise, why am I not running away from this person at this point? Why are they getting closer to me when I'm running faster than them?
Right.
There must be something going wrong here that's causing me to slow down. Yeah. And when it happens at the same point in your orienteering again and again, then you probably should think about working out why is it happening at this point. Yeah. And for me, that's was going in and out of controls was quite clearly weakness, basically.
And what are the details that you change? What are the levers and knobs you can tweak?
A bit like, you can, you want to decide what's your strategy for finding the control? Are you going to read your way in on the features? Are you going to just attack it on a compass and just go for it? And deciding which strategy to use in which situation. I don't think I was doing that particularly well.
Right. So what's your default?
Well, I didn't have a default. Okay. I think I was it was how I'd grown, how I felt. You know, we try and sometimes I'd be using the compass to try and get in. Sometimes I'd be trying to read the features, and often I'd be choosing the wrong thing. Okay. So the solution is to sit down and talk about it, and you go, and someone who knows what they're talking about can go.
That's when you're at one of these big Swedish clubs
wrong.
With experienced coaches.
Exactly, and experienced athletes as well. Yeah, to tell you wrong. Right.
So
wrong.
That's the slow way to get it, and this is the fast way to get it. Yeah. Or the reliable way.
Yeah. Or, why have you done this? Yeah. And you give them some reason, they'll go, this is not correct.
Your logic is flawed.
Your logic is flawed.
Interesting. And I think that's the next level, and something that I'm learning as you speak. These are the kind of things that I need to look at as well, because I'm spending the time looking at the GPS, and it's sometimes hard to tell if it looks good or bad because you can't see the hesitation so well, and you can't see the risk. There's not like a risk marker.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's so cool with orienteering is, and so infuriating is it's so much is in your mind, and you get this evidence that comes out in the GPS and the splits, but to really know what's going on, you've got to just talk about it with someone who understands how you go orienteering. Yeah,
at speed.
Yes.
I can take you around anything at a slow pace, and I can't fang it like some of these guys can, and still maintain any kind of confidence. And I can't even navigate that. I don't have that mental bandwidth to use my technique and get the controls well. Like, they're simplifying in a way that's so intelligent that I haven't got the technique to minimize the amount of map reading that's going on. So do you find that now you're looking at a particular leg and a particular entry into a control and a particular method of getting the control jumps out at you?
Yes, there'll be a clear, or most of the time, I'm still not 100% done with this.
But the sooner it jumps out at you, the less thinking and cognition you have to do around that.
Yes, understanding that this is quite clearly the best way to tackle this leg, this control. How do I get in from there fastest? I need to get to this point, and I need to use my compass and really go for it. Or this control, I really should read all these features because
you're kind of mentioning two examples, like compassing and reading the details, and Are they just two ends of the spectrum, or are there different methods you would describe discreetly?
I think it's quite binary. I
Yeah.
think it is either it's
Okay.
one or the other.
Yeah.
At least
interesting.
what I've found.
Yeah. I can't really think of
I
anything else
mean-
either, but once you're kind of in that way of thinking about it, then, I mean, they're the two tools you've got.
Yes.
You gotta use
Yeah.
mostly one or mostly the other. But if you're in different kinds of terrain, if you're looking at the map, you might put an emphasis on certain things that are more reliable. Or do you
Yes,
find
yeah,
find it's
yeah.
just contours all the time? Or in the UK, for example, you could see some maps where the contours are not really helpful because they're just vague.
Well, they're
big,
not
broad
they're
curves.
not there.
Yeah,
so
they're so flat, they're not there.
I guess in some places the vegetation is much more useful to use.
Hmm.
Um,
And that has to
or the rocks
jump
can be
out at
much
you?
more useful potentially. Well, I've always thought I've been quite good at understanding vegetation because I come from a place that
right.
a lot of the detail you're trying to find is vegetation, and
Mhm.
therefore the maps show it a lot better than potentially Scandinavia because
Right.
they've got so much else that's going on. It doesn't matter if these group of trees are closer together or not. They don't
Mhm.
need to map that. It doesn't matter to them. But in
Yeah.
Britain, group of trees come together. Fantastic. What a control site.
Yeah, I think you'll see it with maps everywhere. They're trying to get a certain level of detail on the map that the mapper finds satisfactory,
Yeah.
and they'll find it. They'll find it somehow. Can you describe some other terrains where the way you approach a control has really changed? I mean, we can think about like a big hillside in Czech, for example,
Yep.
where you've got just a boulder on a steep but smooth slope. How are you approaching something like that? Is that still a job for the compass, even on the curved slope, or are you taking like height into account at all?
The height is the most important thing on the slope.
Yeah,
That's what I think.
you can count
Well,
the contours enough.
I know that I'm roughly 2 meters tall.
How many
therefore-
Ralphs do I have to
Exactly.
go down?
How many routes do I have to go down? If you're looking up the slope,
Yeah,
you look at your eye level, and then you put your feet there, and you look at your next eye level, you put your feet there,
yeah.
and then your eye level is potentially on 5 meters, and then well done, you've done a contour level.
Yeah, well, that's totally new. I've never heard of that, and it makes sense. Does it take so much attention away from navigating because you're busy looking, or it's just a habit you get into and it becomes autonomous?
Well, I'm not very good at slope orienting, so maybe it doesn't
Neither.
work. But like you said,
Yeah.
check,
Yeah,
world champs in 2021. I should probably work out
yeah.
how to do slope orienteering
Same here.
before that.
Yeah,
I've never been very good at slope orienteering.
yeah,
I've never really done it. So
Yeah. yeah. Well, you and me both have some
work
work to do, definitely, because at that stage I'm reliant on the quality of my direction. Basically, it's purely direction exercise, and yeah, I have a feel for the height,
Yep.
but not really reliable if I'm not paying attention to it. So if I'm focusing on running fast, then I drop all kind of intuition about height. So maybe it is just something you have to practice over and over again to develop the intuition of height. Or
Yeah.
we need to
Get
find someone who's
some-
experienced in that terrain.
Get
they
some
can
Czech
point out-
friends.
Yeah,
Talk to them.
yeah. What are they doing? So let's get on to Jukola,
Okay.
which is where the photo was Jukola, not Tiomila. Off the front.
Off the front. Well, it happened twice.
Happened twice. Oh, I've conflated the two.
I haven't
only
run
one time.
first leg at Tiomila
Okay,
yet.
right. So both are at Jukola. Talk me through that moment, and just go through the experience of being on that start line, because I've done it as well, and the silence, the air is just so tense. How do you describe it? It's deathly.
Expectation,
Yeah.
I think, is how I would describe it. And because it's the Finnish military who do the start, you never quite know what they're going to do.
Yeah.
Cannon 1 year, like artillery piece, tank,
Yeah.
fighter jet.
The fighter jet was just, no one saw that coming.
So incredible.
Yeah.
So I've done 3 first legs at Jukola.
Yeah.
2014.
Yeah.
2015. 2018.
Mm-hmm.
2 of them have gone rather well. One
Yeah.
of them has not gone very well. We'll start at the beginning.
Yeah.
So 2014, was quite good at orienteering.
Mm-hmm.
I'd run last leg at Tiomila for Södertälje, which was a short leg at Tiomila, but I'd done it and I'd done a good job, and I was feeling pretty confident about my orienteering. And the team picked me to run the first leg.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if I'm honest, I thought that I could potentially have done a different leg.
Right.
Potentially having felt quite arrogant, I guess.
Right.
That.
So this is referring to the way on first leg you can get away with more following than.
Yeah, well,
than
I
other
think
legs.
that
it's a bit safer.
Yeah, sort of. Why can't we put? Why I should? That I think that's the vibe I felt was. I'm quite good. I can run a leg that's more important. Yeah, and that's what I felt.
Well, yeah, where there's more to lose.
Yeah,
I think.
Yes.
People get dragged along by the pack.
I'm not saying that I knew that I had the right attitude.
Yeah,
I'm telling you that.
So that's a rationale
what I felt.
On selecting the legs, because kind of for us for the first time we want to run the first leg just to get the experience, and the result feels good. But if you look at the times, you can see that where was I? I was like 2 minutes from the lead, and I was in 28th or something. You're not if you're doing a leg by yourself and you're 2 minutes from the lead. You're top 5. Yeah, you're right up there. Let's be honest.
Well, a lot of people want to do first leg to get back in at the front and show how good they are.
Oh yeah, because everyone's watching.
Because everyone's watching.
There's also that. Yeah.
And I don't think people understand how difficult it is to run a leg late in the relay and do a similar job. Yeah. So there I am in 2014, sort of a bit angry that I've not got a leg that I feel is more important.
You're not getting the acknowledgement.
And I'm feeling that I'm really good at orienteering and I want to show people how good I am. Yeah. So there's the motivation to run fast. I'm also a bit nervous as well because it is first leg. I'm the first guy going out on this team which wants to win Jukola. Yeah. So what can I do to calm myself down? I like to mess around. That helps me a lot with calming myself. So when I'm warming up on the finish shoot, when I see my mates who are there cheering, well, it's great to have a little bit of a joke with them and say, I'll be first when I come here. Yeah. So that's the story for 2014 of why I ended up at the front. Do you know which year you've picked?
No, I actually thought there was just one time that you'd gone off.
So 2014, go off the front. Yeah. A decent gap, not a huge gap. Big long first leg, settle down, get in the group.
Yeah. So
orienteering.
So from the drone shot, you're just the front of the triangle.
Yep.
Like you can see it kind of merging into the forest. And is that how you recall it? I guess maybe you weren't looking behind, but
well, I've seen the drone shot and I go, okay, cool. I've got like a 10-meter gap or something. Yeah. And then I remember doing the rest of the leg.
Was it a long first leg?
It was a really long first leg. It was a half an hour first leg or
so everyone catches up. And
everyone catches up. You get in the group, and I did a really good race. It felt very slow. Okay. It felt very controlled. Yeah. And I came back in 4th place on that first leg.
Didn't screw up the forks.
All 5. I did make a mistake at the end, which let leading get a gap. Okay. A minute gap or something, but I handed over. I did a decent job. Yeah. Team did well. We were 3rd. Yeah. Boys, everyone's happy. Boys happy. Yeah. Great job. Everyone's happy. Come back the next year, 2015, and I'm not having a good year. Okay. It's home world champs, and I'm stressed. Yeah. I'm running badly. I might not get in the team. I've basically overtrained myself. I've run badly all year. I've had an absolute disaster at Tiomila. Right. Running late in the race. and I'm on first leg again in 2015, and I'm thinking it's about this time that that I should be starting to run well. I remember last year it being really slow, the first leg. Therefore, and I'm really good still.
Yeah.
I'm still really good. Therefore, I can show everyone that I deserve to be in the World Champs team this year. I can show everyone that even though I had a disaster at Tiomila, actually I'm really good.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go out there.
And like really good at orienteering, or especially really fast? Did you? Or...
show people I'm good at orienteering.
Yeah,
I'm going to go out on first leg. I'm going to run away from this whole pack.
Yeah.
The whole first leg. I'm going to win first leg. I'm going to be.
Yeah.
And it was all on me showing how good I was.
Mm-hmm.
So I was a horrible person to have thought this. Like looking back at it now, taking completely selfish views of my orienteering.
Right.
So there I am. Right. I'm
Whereas
just going
the
to
team
smash
just wants
it.
you to kind of be a little more conservative.
The team wants someone to come back in the pack on first leg. That is what they want.
Yeah. There's not really any difference between
there is no point in you being off the front.
Yeah.
That is exactly the worst possible place for you to be.
Yeah. So it's all about you looking a certain way in front of the crowd and in front of the team. Yeah.
Complete and utter unacceptable show. So I mean, it's the worst thing I've ever done, I think.
For the photo.
Well, so like embarrassing, like unbelievable. Like I'm so like I can look back at it now and I hate the person I was.
Yeah, and even if you did just come in, like even if you did win, you would have been like that. Like I didn't win the race because I was significantly far in front by the start triangle. That was still an independent part of the race. Like that is still an unnecessary risk.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even if you coming back in first, it's just a relief for everyone.
Yes.
That despite your efforts to screw it up, you didn't.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, maybe I was lucky in the first year, the year before, that I'd gone faster and then slowed down. And this time I saw a not super long leg, and therefore I was willing to, I'm going to go and lead this race, basically.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah, it came back 4 minutes down on that leg. I basically hit the wall with a K&a-half to go.
Mm-hmm. Did it feel that fast off the start, or like you were fit?
No, it felt like I was jogging, like, basically.
Where is everyone? Suddenly,
where is everyone?
Yeah, okay. I think that's the combination of just all the psychological things going on.
Yeah. So yeah, 4 minutes down.
Yeah.
We're the only big team missing from the lead group. Basically, I think we finished 15th or something. Yeah. So yeah, boys not happy. Boys pissed with me.
Yeah. Okay. So they brought it up.
I'm obviously devastated with myself. Well, they didn't. They told. Did they? I mean, yeah. I knew that they didn't.
Yeah. I don't know.
They were not happy.
Like it's pretty obvious.
I was obviously devastated as well because hit the wall. Having this, I'd done a bad job.
Yeah.
And I knew it. And
That's
I'm just
fascinating.
So devastated.
Yeah.
Which is why it was amazing to, go to Australia, fix everything, basically, come back and win Tiomila the year after. So
really redemption.
Do a good
story.
job. And then to finish the story is Jukola last year, 2018. Yeah. They get Ralph to do first leg.
Again, man, really giving you the trust.
And there's a conversation as well before is you do not go off fast at the start line. And I'm thinking, I must not go off fast. And we start, and I'm trying to not go fast. Yeah. And I'm in 80th place or something.
Okay.
Still thinking this pace is really hard.
Right,
really,
that's funny.
Felt
how you
so fast.
Totally switched the psychology.
Yeah, and I'm sitting in the middle of this pack.
Yeah,
struggling away.
Yeah, whereas the year before you were just off the front thinking it's easy.
But as expected, after 200 meters, the pace slows down. Yeah, and I can move up.
Yeah, and you just glide up as well. Once you hear other people start puffing.
Yeah, glide up, and I don't know. I always feel that there should be more talking on first leg, and that people should be a bit more maybe respectful of the big teams. So when people are on first leg cutting in front of me, I'm pretty much telling them, what on earth are you doing? Come on. First leg sort of tell you, like, you can just follow me and everything will be all right. And there we are. First back, or maybe not first back. First to the map changeover, which is, of course, the most important thing, even if my friend Chris might have got to the finish punch before me on that first leg.
The Brits have really got a bit of reputation on first leg, at least the times I seem to be watching. There's always a Brit. I think Alan's been quite close to the front on a few occasions.
Who else has
been?
Hector's been in. He was first back on that Jukola that I bombed. Peter Hodkinson, Will Gardner have done good first legs. Johnny Crickmore's done good first legs. Chris Jones has done good first legs. I've actually done two good first legs. Now I'm going to be having name dropped so many people. I'm now embarrassed. I'm bound to have forgotten someone. But
no, it's cool. And
it's like you said, you feel like you've got a good physical background. You can hold the orienteering together when you're with other people. Therefore, if you've got the temperament to do orienteering, and you've got that physical ability to go into overdrive, to catch up onto the group when you've had a long forking or made a little bit of a mistake, if you can run back onto the pack, then you're a perfect first leg runner.
Basically. And I think I've had good experiences and bad experiences on first, because I do enjoy the pack racing. And I'm not sure what the feedback is there, whether it's you enjoy what you're better at or what you get better results at. But I had quite a good race in Scotland. In the relay. And I got thrown on first, and I was last to the third control. I think. And I hadn't made a mistake. Like, it was fast. I was so fast. I think I was like third last to the start triangle. And I knew that I was in quite good shape. And that was a crucial moment in the race, I think, was me doing my own race. For the first, there was two kind of medium legs at the start, and just deciding that no, I'm one of the fastest guys here. At running speed. On the ground, the terrain is quite fast. Let them, like, physiology is real. This is not something that has to give. And like half the teams exploded on the massive forking. There was a really very big split. And we rock up at like the fifth control, and there I am at the front, like, what the hell happened? And then it was basically just who has got the leg speed for the rest of the race. And the crucial moment was very early on. It was this decision to just do what makes sense, what actually makes sense in this moment. Is not to be at the front. It was actually to be like off the back. That was definitely one of those moments that you kind of are tested, and you either pass or fail. And that was. And since then, haven't really found it. I think I had too much confidence going into my next JWOC relay. After that, and on my next first leg after that, and I was like, the same thing will happen. And I didn't pay enough attention on the first leg, and a whole bunch of us screwed it up. But they're definitely the moments that are really most testing. It's just a split decision when you've got a whole race to, work it out. It kind of all comes back to that one moment. So what's next for you? What's the goal at the moment?
Sitting here right now, World Cups in Finland. Jukola. World Champs in Norway. Those are the three. Those are the three things.
And you're doing specific work on honing your technique to the specific terrains.
All the technique work is going into Norway. No technique work for Finland.
And that's convenience. Obviously, you're here and you're in relevant terrain. And it's not like Finland is that different. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that.
So it's a good crossover.
It's all Scandinavia, isn't it?
Cool. Well, best of luck with.
Thank you very much.
The rest of the season, and we'll be watching Jukola again to
Do you have
see
watch
how it...
parties in New Zealand?
Well,
Is
we
that
used
a
to when
thing?
we were young
Okay.
and really rowdy. It was a massive right? And because it was usually on a Sunday for us,
Yeah.
we would be able to watch League 1 and 2 and then go to orienteering
Okay.
and then we'll go to someone's place
Okay.
afterwards.
Cool.
And finish it off, just have this whole day
Cool.
of orienteering, and we'd kind of miss a little bit in the middle when
Yep.
we're in the forest without reception, and
Yep.
then we get out again. So yeah, it is really cool for us to watch. Better to be there, but it's still great that they put on such a good TV production for these races. Cool. Well, thanks for your time.
You're very welcome.
If you're enjoying the Perfect Flow podcast and want more value from it in the future, there are some ways you can support it. The first is to rate or leave a positive review on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or other platforms where it's available. The second is to share this podcast or specific episodes on social media or with friends. The third is to get involved more directly through the Perfect Flow page on Facebook, where I'm trying to construct a more interactive community. I want Perfect Flow to belong to the listeners, and if you tell me more about the topics you are most interested in, or even specific guests, I'll do my best to make it happen. This is your opportunity to be part of something that answers your questions and adds value to your life. Another good reason to follow Perfect Flow on Facebook is that I post links to new episodes, blogs, and anything I find useful to this page. It's a great way to follow my training, racing, and learning. Another great way to stay engaged is to subscribe to beveridge.nz. This way you will get podcasts and blogs emailed to you, avoiding the clutter of Facebook. I don't know where this project will take us, but the reception so far has been positive. Who knows where we might be in a few years.